pub nearby?
Why? You thirsty?
I could use a few pints.
Did that dude just make a dad joke? That's freaking awesome.
Johnny Cage wins.
Alright, boys and girls, gather round, gather round. It's 2019 and we have a new Mortal Kombat. Now, full disclosure, I don't know the entire history of Mortal Kombat. I don't. It's not that it's bad, it's not that, I hate it. Growing up, I didn't get Mortal Kombat as a kid. In the 90s, I was a baby, pretty much, when the first game came out in 92, I was 2. Alright, so I missed a lot of that growing up. I didn't really get Mortal Kombat until Mortal Kombat 9. I didn't wind up keeping it. I think I traded it in a few years after I had gotten it. And I played a decent amount, got through a good chunk of the story. I completed the story. But I got through a good chunk of the achievements, is what I mean. And I think I even had the DLC pass, too. Got all the DLC characters that came with it. I also had gotten Injustice, Gods Among Us, and kind of missed out on Mortal Kombat X and Injustice 2. Those games came out long before I started reviews, and also, I'm not a huge fighting game fan, and it's not because they're bad games. I'm just bad at fighting games. I always have been. If you've ever read my Dragon Ball FighterZ, I should say, review, which, I can link down below. Just go check out my website. I have all kinds of reviews over the last couple of years. But I disclosed in that I'm terrible at fighting games. So if I miss some details or there's something that isn't completely sure to me, just understand that I don't know the full mythos. I know pieces in here and there from doing certain research and kind of looking some stuff up, but just understand. So, Mortal Kombat 11 is supposedly the 11th game in the franchise, but it's not. When I looked up all the games, I was kind of curious. Because it's not like they have a Mortal Kombat 4, or Mortal Kombat 5, or Mortal Kombat 6. Really, they're actually named other things, and it's a little confusing because they've got Mortal Kombat 1 through 3, and then they got 3 other Mortal Kombats, which I'll admit I don't remember the names off the top of my head. And then they've got 2 spin-offs, and then they had the reboot, which was Mortal Kombat 9. So I'm lost. Actually, I think there was a Mortal Kombat 4. Damn, see, I don't know. Point being is when you look at the main titles, there's only 10, but somehow this is MK11. Either way, this game isn't worth your $60. Well, yeah, I genuinely think that it is. I guess that's the end of the episode. Okay, kidding, but the game has a ton of content. And it's one of those things where I feel like they kind of used and reused a few things here and there from like Mortal Kombat X. It's not like atrocious like Madden, okay? It's not they're reusing assets from like 5 years ago, okay? It's one of those things where for me I don't know tons of differences, and it doesn't help too that I didn't play Mortal Kombat X, so I can't completely tell you all the differences between the two. But for what you get for $60, or for me who rented it because I'm a broke bitch, there's a ton of content. There's so much content I didn't come close to getting it all done. But we'll talk more about that as we get into the review. First, let's go ahead and talk about graphics for me.
I did.
Scorpion. Of course you survived the Time Merger.
You will not stop Kronika from restoring my family and clan.
If Scorpion doesn't kill us, his traps will. Find a way to shut them down.
The graphics are phenomenal. The game looks beautiful, the levels are wonderful, the brutalities, the fatalities are as epic and as gory and as satisfying as ever. The game is as brutal as you would remember any of the previous ones. And, I mean, for me, it seems like they do try and continue cranking it up with each release, but after a while, you just get so numb to seeing some of these. I mean, there's an instance where, like, Cassie can go ahead and kick a freaking hole through a dude's chest and put her arms through him and do little emojis and shit. You've got, you know, one dude, you got freaking Johnny Cage who rips somebody in half and uses them as a puppet. I mean,
Ninja Mime was awesome.
Yeah, I rocked it.
It really tore me up.
Fatality.
you just become numb to the fact that, I mean, like, some of them are absurd and you laugh about it, but, like, they don't go, oh. I mean, there's so many things that you've seen at this point that it's hard to sit there and tell you that it's more brutal than ever before. But I guess if you need to hear it, yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's even a fatality where Baraka rips the face off of somebody and stabs their brain and eats it. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. But, moving on from the graphics, sound design is really good in here as well. I mean, from the punches and the kicks that land and they sound like sledgehammers against somebody. I mean, obviously, the gore and just the mashings and the brutalness of it all. You can hear every bit of it. But it's even just deeper than that. It's also like hearing things that are going on in the level as well. Whether there's characters sitting in the background or waves crashing against the ship. There's all kinds of stuff that, you know, your ears are going to hear all kinds of shit. And sound design is just really, really on par here. Music is great. The announcer, obviously, is as great as ever. And there's actually different announcers, too, that you can unlock, I do believe. For different voices and stuff like that. Everything is wonderful in that aspect. Story is good. But I do have one small beef with the story. For me, it's a smidge short. Now, while Dragon Ball FighterZ had an issue where the story was stretched out too much with just filler nonsense, this story, while it's got some great, gorgeous-looking cutscenes, some wonderful character moments, and a really neat story, it's only like, for me, I'm a terrible fighting game fan, alright? And on medium, I completed the main storyline in like 6-7 hours. And it's like, for me, my sweet spot's like, you know, 8 or 9, depending obviously on a multitude of things. Where like a game like, let's say, Days Gone, which I started playing here just tonight, Days Gone is an open world game, which has side quests and has, you know, all kinds of different things going on. So, it's in an open world. So, with it being 15, 20, 30 hours, it doesn't bother me as much as long as the content is interesting. With straightforward games like this, where it is very linear, obviously, it doesn't hurt to sit there and have it trimmed down just a little bit. It doesn't need to be 30 hours. I mean, like I said, FighterZ's biggest issue is the fact that the main campaign can go on for 12, 15 hours because you've got 3 chunks of it that you can kind of play and see. It's great to sit there and see like different aspects from different heroes and stuff like that and how it all meshes together, but so much of it's bogged down with filler that it just kind of throws the whole thing away. To be honest with you, actually, the story is probably closer to 20 hours if you really, I mean, you have all that filler in there. But with this, it feels a smidge too short. Like, just as it was, you know, as things were getting interesting and it's, you know, asking certain questions and leaving you to really kind of decide the answers to those questions, it seems like really the last, like, chapter or 2 is, like, sped up really quickly to get you to the end. So really that's my biggest gripe. And maybe honestly too, I guess maybe that's the other thing too, is for me, Mortal Kombat 9, I felt like hit that sweet spot. Where the campaign, even on like medium, normal, I can't remember what they named it back then, it might have been medium. It lasted like 9, 10, 11 hours. But it was satisfying, it was a great story, I had a lot of fun with it, and like I said, I'm not a huge fighting game fan, but if you give me a good story, I'm gonna sit there and pick up your game. They did a great job because they actually had everything that happened up to this point, the characters who are, some of them are dead, some of them are alive, some of them have turned evil, some of them are good now, and actually face their previous selves, I thought was really great because some of them are shocked because, you know, they're being pulled straight out of like Mortal Kombat 2 or 3 storylines and are left going, what is going on? I married this person, I dated this person, I'm allegiance to who now? What happened to me? And it's great to sit there and see the past meet the present and combine. Your main villain is Kronika. She's actually the mother of Shinnok, who was the main villain in Mortal Kombat 10. Or Shinnok, I'm not entirely sure. I'll say Shinnok. But he's that was her son, and she's very upset at Raiden for obviously killing him.
As are you. I am Kronika.
The legends are true?
I am displeased with how history has unfolded.
So you broke time?
I stopped time. I enlist all those who disdain the current course of history. By merging past and present, we may draw upon allies from both eras.
So she goes out of her way to try and not just erase that, but also erase Raiden from existence. So she's actually bringing the past to the present to scramble everything, get some allies, and try to rewrite the entirety of history to completely write out Raiden as a whole. And I really liked the storyline. I really did dig it. It had more of a Back to the Future-esque kind of a thing where anything that happened to your past self would affect your future self. And you can argue day in and day out about whether that's fictional or factual. It doesn't really matter to me. I thought it was really fun. I really did dig it. The ending leaves it obviously up for a Mortal Kombat 12, which I'm going to assume they're going to make. And I'd be down for it. I really would. I'm curious about what they're going to do now as everything is completely jumbled up the way that it is. I mean, it kind of always was. I think Mortal Kombat 9, if I remember straight, rewrote a lot of things, changed a lot of storylines, and it was honest up front about it. But with this one, it completely starts over. Completely starts over. So, Kronika obviously is the main villainess, and she's really good. I mean, honestly, I liked her performance. I think Jennifer Hale, that actually went ahead and did the voice acting and was the character face and whatnot for this character. I thought she was wonderful. I liked her being added to the mythos. But she's not a playable character here, and that's something that I have noticed in previous Mortal Kombats, where some characters, or at least I've heard too, that some characters that are main characters in the storylines, they just never make playable characters in the series. And while part of me is kind of like, that's okay, it's not a big deal, it is a little disappointing. Because you have this brand new character, and I'm just kind of looking forward to being able to play with her or unlock her and play with her, and you're not. There are 24 playable characters. 4 of them are brand new. Most of them are on her side, Kronika's side. And they're really interesting. I actually had I had fun with a couple of them. There's 2 of them I didn't get to try out, but I will once I get the game again in my hands. I'll probably go ahead and play around with and think around with. But really overall, I mean, yeah, there's 24 playable characters. If you pre-order the game, you'll have 25. And I think that's where actually I want to talk about my second real biggest gripe about this game. And that is, it's not just this game. It's been every game. And while I understand that that's kind of been the thing that they do, and so some people kind of write it off, it bothers me that there are entire playable characters with collectibles and certain, outfits and combat cards and fatalities and brutalities and stuff like that you can unlock. But if you didn't pre-order the game, you have to pay $6 to unlock Shao Kahn. I mean, Shao Kahn's a mainstay. Even I know that, and I'm not even that diehard of a Mortal Kombat fan. I know Shao Kahn is a diehard. And that's the biggest issue right now that I have with most games when they do silly stuff like this. Like, honestly, Mortal Kombat, and I get that obviously, too, that it's not easy to do, but they could have made maybe an entire costume set, or maybe they could have had, like, you know, a couple of costumes as a set for a handful of characters, maybe the new ones, as a pre-order bonus, and instead decided to lock an entire character away. And then the only way to unlock it is to either pay $6 for him individually. Maybe he'll come out eventually too if they ever do something like they did with Mortal Kombat X, with Mortal Kombat XL, where they had, I believe, all the DLC combined into the game. The 2 DLC packs as well as, I think, the pre-order content. And so for me, it bothers me a bit, because I've always hated whether it's difficulty levels, like with the Ranger mode in Last Light for Metro years ago, or entire playable characters, especially when you have a good set of 24. 24 is respectable. But at the same time, then you start to think, you're like, wait, there's like 28 or 29 in Injustice. Even Dragon Ball FighterZ had like 25, 26. I can't quite remember the exact number, but they had a lot of playable characters. So every playable character really counts, especially when sometimes you're competing against yourself. You know, Injustice is made by the same guys who made Mortal Kombat, NetherRealm Studios. So it's just silly to me. And I wish that maybe they'd look into it further on down the line, because especially with pre-order culture nowadays, it's starting to become this risky business where people don't want to pre-order. They're tired of pre-ordering games and then getting anthemed, okay? Or pre-ordering games and getting Battlefront 2. They don't like pre-ordering games, and it's nothing against NetherRealm Studios. It's really, most people don't like pre-ordering most games. I mean, even I only pre-order like 1 or 2 games a year. Most of the time, I'll just wait until the game comes out, go pick it up. But like with Mortal Kombat 11, especially since I don't own it, when I go pick it up and buy it at some point later on down the line, I'm not going to have Shao Kahn unless I pay another $5, $6 up front. And I just think that's silly. So, especially considering the fact that there are so many collectibles, and I guess that'll be the next thing that we talk about. There are so many collectibles. With each of the 24 characters, they kind of remade what they did with Mortal Kombat X. I do remember with Mortal Kombat X, they had different fighting styles. They had like 3 or 4 different, like, you know, interchangeable, like fighting styles that you could have that had different moves, different finishers, and stuff like that. With here, they kind of amplified it. Instead of having like 2 or 3 presets, they do start off with 2 presets, but really you can kind of customize your own presets. That way, not only can you use your own customizations, but you can also kind of customize the moves, the special moves that you want to be able to do. And I didn't get to dig completely into it. I couldn't really sit there and really do a deep dive into it. But to be honest with you, there's a ton of experimentation. And I was able to, even with the 20 to 25 hours that I played the game, I wasn't even able to tap into all of it. So there's a ton of experimentation to happen there. They didn't overhaul, certain styles like that, like I said, what they did with Mortal Kombat X, where they gave you the 3 or so presets. They just evolved it with this game. And I don't think they needed to overhaul it. So, the fact that they decided to evolve it makes a lot of sense. So then that gets me to my next point, which is actually the customizations. So, obviously with the 24 fighters and all their different fighting styles, there also comes, I think it's like 60-something, 70-something customizable items, I should say, for each character. Which, don't get me wrong, the more of the content you have, obviously it makes a lot of us really fucking happy. I'm not here to argue that or even be mad at you for that. However, there is one thing that's bad about it. And that is the simple fact that to get all of these collectibles, people crunched the numbers, and while I know that some of them are wrong, so if you see some of these numbers out there, Ed Boon and some of the other developers over at NetherRealm Games kind of squashed that ideal, and there's no way we'll be able to prove it for a long time anyway, so I'm going to take them at their word for now. But somebody had said, oh, well, it's like almost $7,000 to get all the customizations. And if you could buy all the customizations, that would be true. But Ed Boon did come out and say, hey, that's not entirely true. Most of the customizations are never going to be in the store anyways. However, even if that is true, it's still going to take you some like 3,000 hours is what it was guesstimated at the rate that it is now, to get coins, to get time stones, and to get all the other fucking currencies. There's like 8 currencies, I swear to Christ, to sit there and to be able to get things, whether it's in the crypt or whether it's in the store. And that is almost unacceptable. And I mean, Ed Boon agreed, so I give him total props for that. He did also come out and agree that, hey, the numbers are a bit high, they're a bit wonky, we'll adjust them. We're not done with it. And because, I mean, the other thing that you have to think about, too, is with each new character that they introduce, they're going to have their own customizations, too. So even if you take into account the 3,000 to get the 25 playable characters that are available now, there's already at least 6 more that we know of with the pass that are coming. So that's an additional, what, like probably another 500-600 hours at least? That's fucking stupid. And while I understand you want to make it where there's a bit of a grind and that, you know, there's never duplicates when you go to the crypt. That is nice. But the crypt is completely random. So you'll never know or be able to figure out what you're getting. Where in previous, you know, crypts, from what I've been told and what I've heard, you could sit there and kind of, as a community, get together and say, hey, this is where this item's at, this is where this item's at, like in previous Mortal Kombats. But in this one, it's all fucking random. So while they don't have loot boxes like they said they would never have, you're practically just opening up loot boxes in the fucking crypt. You're just not paying money for it. Thank fuck on that. So it's a bit of a gripe on my part because it's too tedious. I'm not a very good fighting game fan, or I'm not a very good fighting game player, I should say. So it's hard for me to be a fan when all of the customizations take so many hours to sit there and unlock. And, I mean, you gotta find a way to keep my attention. And, you know, in other ways other than fighting other players who just wind up whooping my ass all day long and make me want to break the disc in half. So moving away from customizations, getting a little heated, I'm getting a little mad, but moving away from customizations, there are like 18 something stages. There is one stage that's got 3 variations, so technically 21, but really you have 18 different stages to play on. That's a lot of stages. I think that's really good, or that's more than I think Fighter Z had, or many of those other ones. So honestly, I think that's wonderful. They're all really detailed. They all have, you know, different traps and different things to be able to get away from people, to get separation and all this other stuff. So they're all really well done. Honestly, I feel like that's always a spot, no matter what. With any of the games that NetherRealms have made over the last, like, what is it, 7, 8 years now? It's like 8 years now. No matter any of the games, the one thing you can always point out is, hey, they make some really good fucking levels, and they do. Whether it's an Injustice or in Mortal Kombat. One other thing that I wanted to detail too is the training grounds. I don't know if they updated it with Mortal Kombat X, but I did notice it here being different from Mortal Kombat 9, in that there's a lot more detail in the training grounds than ever before to really help somebody who's really shitty like I am be able to tell where I'm screwing up with my fingers pressing certain buttons to perform certain combos and abilities. One thing that I did notice, I heard a complaint, and I read a few complaints too, looking up reviews and people talking about Mortal Kombat X when that came out originally. And with this game, I noticed for sure the netcode for the game is way better than it was when it released with Mortal Kombat X. Something I feel like they took into consideration when they put this game together and they got, you know, all the servers up and running. They took a lot of shit and a really big beating with Mortal Kombat X over that. And I'm glad that they really did learn their lesson and say, no, this time we're going to make sure it's right the first time. Because they did fix it with XL, but it took a while for them to really get it up off the ground. However, from what I've seen, I don't play a lot of games on my PC. I've got like 3 or 4 that I play. Most of the time my PC is used to edit videos for right now. the one thing that I've heard is that the PC port for Mortal Kombat 11 is somewhat abysmal. I don't know how true that is, but if you are worried about that, if you want to take a lot of what people are saying about that as fact, just make sure you get a PlayStation 4 or an Xbox One copy then, if that is the case, if you really want this game, because I played on Xbox One, I had no issues, no frame rate drops, no nothing. Everything flowed together from the cutscenes to, getting into the actual fights. Everything flowed really well, and connecting to people to eventually just whip my ass around. It all flowed really well, and you weren't sitting around for a long time. It feels like, and there wasn't a lot of lag, so it feels like they really wanted to focus on that. Like I said, I don't know what's going on with the PC port. You might want to look into that. Maybe I'll try to talk about that here soon as kind of like an additional to go with this, because I didn't get a lot of time to really go ahead and dig into that, since I'm working on like 5 things right now at once, and I'm just trying to get caught up on stuff. But finally, I just want to sit there and wrap it all up. Honestly, Mortal Kombat 11 has so much content. Like I said before, I had the game for 5 days and played it for like 20-25 hours, and there is still a ton to do. And I mean, that's kind of what we expect with NetherRealm games. But a lot of the stuff that they have is really good. Whether it's the towers, which, I mean, have been a mainstay for a while now. But also they've also got other variations where there's actually like online challenges where every 8 to 12 hours, give or take. I know there's timers. I haven't caught exactly how long the timers are, but every so often, I think it's like every 12 hours, they refresh, and they give you new challenges, new towers with new things that you can, get for completing these challenges. Whether it's defeating 3 enemies with 1 life, or completing 5 enemies with 1 life. And these time towers, as they call them, are really hard. For me, they're really hard. Like I said, I suck. I really need more time really playing the game to maybe see if I can get just an edge better. But I'm not gonna lie, third-person shooters and first-person shooters are really my mainstay, and I'm not hiding that at all. But there's, so you've got all of those, and the challenge towers and the time towers are gonna give you a ton of stuff to do. But then you've got your story mode, you've got the 1v1 stuff, you've got offline stuff, you can sit there and fight the CPU, as well as just, obviously, like I said earlier, a ton of stuff to unlock. So, for $60, this game is definitely worth your money. So, that comes to my final verdict. My final verdict for Mortal Kombat 11 is actually 9 out of 10. I almost went with an 8, but then I realized that, honestly, I did have a decent amount of fun with this game. That's saying something, because obviously me not being the target audience for this type of game, it still drew me in. With the characters, with the story, as well as trying to pull off fatalities, which I was able to do, and, learning how to do combos. Like, I started to get a little bit better before I had to give the game up. Really, to me, it's on the same level as Dragon Ball FighterZ. With FighterZ, I had a bit of more of an emotional connection to, because I grew up with the Dragon Ball Z anime as a kid. And so for me, it meant something more to finally see a Dragon Ball Z game be good again. Haven't had that since like Budokai 3, okay? That was back in like 2005, for fuck's sakes. So, but the one thing that keeps it from greatness are those 3 points. The fact that the story's a bit shorter, so it's the opposite of FighterZ, where their story was stretched out way too much. This one it felt like I said, you've got a really good, compelling story. You got some things going your way, you got some things not going your way. There's a big reveal, and then it's like that rush to the end real quick, and it felt a little too rushed. I felt like they could have added at least another chapter or 2. The other thing, obviously, being the customizations requiring a ridiculous amount of time to collect. Don't get me wrong, like I said before, it's great to have stuff to want to get and to be like, okay, I can't wait to get this thing. But if they ever add any more customizations, or once they start adding more characters that have their own customization, their own 60 amount of items to sit there and collect, you're going to be collecting items for fucking ever. Because that's the other thing too. Aside from the individual customizations for the characters, you also have fucking concept art, you have, music, you've got all kinds of shit to sit there and collect in these fucking crypts. And I know they're going to work on it. I know they're going to change, but as of right now, as I'm reviewing the game, is way too long. I haven't. There's only like one game I've ever put that much time into. That was Destiny over like 4 years. Well, 3 years. But still. And then, of course, there's the fact that I really dislike the pre-order characters. And I hope that maybe at some point NetherRealms can look into it and maybe find other ways to give pre-order bonuses to people who want to stay vigilant with them, but not feel like it's punishing the rest of us because we don't want to jump onto a sinking ship, potentially. There's too many times where we have gotten anthemed. There's too many times where we've gotten... And I mean, Anthem came from a studio that a lot of us trusted. If Anthem would have been the next game to come out after Mass Effect 2 or 3, I'd have been like, here is my money, here is the money for a collector's edition, everything. But now, after the last several years, especially with these last generation of consoles with Xbox One and PlayStation 4, it seems like more than ever, companies are A-okay with having this alpha-style game, this early game access, without telling us until the game releases and everybody realizes it's shit. And, you know, it's nothing against NetherRealms that I think they're going to put out a shit game. It's just, it can happen to anybody. And it makes a lot of us worried. And we are very guarded. And so I really wish that they would change that. Or like I said, you know, at least think about it. So those really are kind of my negatives. And that's what kind of draws that. It only draws 1 point off. Really, if they just tighten a few of those things up and change those things, to me, this is a potential 10 out of 10. I had a lot of fun with this game, and I look forward to the next game. I think it'll be an Injustice 3, or maybe it'll be a completely different fighting game IP with them. I'm not entirely sure. I'm sure you already had this game. You don't need my approval for it, but there it is. That's what I'm thinking about it. So, next up is Days Gone. I'm working on that now. I do have a review for in-game. If you haven't checked that out, please do. Give me a thumbs up, maybe share it around. And I should also have my spoiler review as well up, where I'm just going to be talking about, I talked about, the things that I liked and loved about the series, what I maybe could have been tweaked around or changed a little bit. And yeah, go check all that stuff out. Go check out any of my other stuff for my playlist. And, stay a while. Go ahead and, maybe write me some comments. Let me know what you think of the show. And until next time, I will see you guys on the next On the Shelf. Bye, guys.